He pointed the red laser at the screen, then at me, and laughed, and the whole room felt colder in a second. I was wiping coffee cups at the back of the auditorium, just helping my mom between panels, when the most famous polyglot in Brazil said we should ask the maid's black daughter to translate the rare language that had stumped them all day. I could have kept my head down, but the marks on that stone felt like a voice I already knew, and once you hear your own name in a room like that, you either stand up or you let it pass you by, you know what I mean. My name is Leticia Santos, daughter of Dona Carmen, raised on quiet bus rides and second-hand books, and the kind of lessons you learn from people who never make it onto conference programs. That day was the International Congress of Lost Languages at the University of Sao Paulo. Scholars flown in cameras, rolling rain stitching the tall windows like a metronome. The stone on the screen was from Minas Gerais, lines and symbols that looked like a mash of old Portuguese and indigenous signs. And for 3 hours, no one could make it sing. Dr. Roberto Manzani did the TV smile and called me up. A little showmanship, a little cruelty. And I heard my mother whisper behind me, "Let's go filha. We don't make scenes," but my feet were already moving. I took the mic, and it felt heavier than I expected, like a promise. "You're reading it like Portuguese," I said, steady, not loud. "It isn't. It's a language of resistance." He grinned, all teeth. The room gave that thin, nervous laugh, and he said, "Well, enlighten us." And that word felt like a dare. I told them what my great-grandfather had told me on hot Sundays when the world slowed down. Wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers. And then I started pointing. That wedge you keep calling mountain is hide. That fork you think is river is path that disappears. This little mark is not a letter at all. It is a time flag that says message for descendants. The first line reads, "Where the path that disappears meets the place to hide the brothers of freedom left their names." The room tightened and went quiet, pens began to move, and Dr. Manzani's smile flickered. He tried to pivot. "Charming story, young lady folklore is lovely." And I slid out my great-grandfather's notebook. Yellowed pages, diagrams, substitutions, phonetic trees done by a man who never asked anyone's permission to be rigorous. Professor Helena Carvalho, who had been watching me like a scientist, not a spectator, stood up and asked to see it. Her voice changed when she did. "This is systematic," she said. "This is real work. Who documented this?" "Samuel Santos." I told her my great-grandfather. The name hit the room like a bell. You could see people remembering early citations, footnotes they used to skim. And for a second, even Dr. Manzani seemed unsure of where to put his hands. He tried anyway. A teenager cannot simply decode in minutes what experts could not in hours. I kept my voice level because anger burns fast. "With respect, doctor, you tested one lens," I said. "My family kept the other. This code was built to move people past hunters and checkpoints, not to sit in a glass case. Let's test it in real time." "Pick a line." Professor Carlos Medina pointed to the third cluster. Everyone called it a boat name. So I worked the grid, symbol to sound to shore sign, applied the time flag, read the tide like my grandfather taught me, and the sentence clicked into place. "When the moon sleeps shallow, follow the reeds that bow west. Where the heron leaves a narrow print cross. If the water speaks hard, wait." It wasn't poetry for applause, it was instructions clean and human, and the room heard the difference. Yeah, that happened. I connected my laptop to the projector and put up a study I had never planned to show that way. Title slide said, "Linguistic Mapping of the Quilombos of Minas Gerais," author, listed as L. Silva. The name I used because sometimes you have to protect the work before you protect your pride. For 4 years, I had been corresponding with a team at Oxford, documenting inscriptions, cross-checking against tide charts, building a transliteration system that anyone literate could learn. 17 stones across the region, maps, tables, field notes at dawn, with mosquitoes chewing on my ankles, verification from elders who still remembered the songs. The air changed. People leaned forward. Phones came out, not to film me, but to search citations. I clicked one more slide because truth deserves receipts. 3 weeks earlier, the famous Polyglot had emailed my Oxford mentor asking for quick help on a so-called primitive Afro-Brazilian dialect to polish a talk, time-sensitive, and requested to speak only with senior researchers. The reply he never read forwarded to me because I was the specialist on the team offered to mentor him through the system so he could present it with respect. I looked at him, not to gloat, just to say a thing clean. You never bothered to find out. You saw a black girl cleaning tables and you decided the story. That's the part that hurt more than the joke. Professor Helena's voice cut through like a levee breaking. Roberto, sit down and listen. We ran the method one more time so no one could call it a fluke. I showed the temporal markers, the compass cues, the doubled notch that marks emphasis, the way the code hides in what you think you already know. The translation fit like a key. You could feel the auditorium decide. Some people looked down at their hands, some wrote faster. A couple of folks whispered that they had misread their own field data for years. And then I did the hardest thing. I said my name out loud fully. I am Leticia Santos, researcher, 16 daughter of Dona Carmen, who has cleaned these halls for a decade with dignity. I'm also El Silva on the papers you've been citing. If you still want my help, doctor, I can walk you through the framework. He left his laser pointer on the lectern and walked out. No storming, no speech, just the sound of someone realizing the room is not theirs anymore. It would be neat if the story ended with the applause, but life isn't a neat loop. People turn complicated when the lights come back on. Some told me I should have stayed quiet. Some said I was too harsh. Some said not harsh enough. You can lose hours trying to hold the world still so it looks more fair than it is. I went home with my mother on the late bus, and we ate eggs and rice at the kitchen table. She touched my shoulder and said one thing, proud. And we didn't speak for a while because sometimes your body needs to catch up with your heart. The week after, the university created a working group that actually included the communities who had kept the code alive when no one in a scarf cared, and that mattered. Grants started calling. Oxford made official what had already been true in the work. My great-grandfather's notebook went into a proper archival sleeve. On Saturdays at a small cultural center, kids copy the symbols in chalk, while their grandmothers explain that a heron prints narrow because it walks like it is reading. 6 months later, a clip of that day went viral. You saw the red dot, you heard my voice steady, you watched a man drown in his own certainty. The university let him go for conduct that did not match its values. His TV spots dried up, invitations disappeared, and yeah, people fought about it online. Did he deserve to lose a career over a moment? Was it just a moment? How many moments came before the one you saw that trained him to look at someone like me and see folklore? I can't answer for anyone but myself. I know I didn't build my life on humiliation, his or mine. I built it on the work. On mornings where the marsh smells like salt and iron. On elders who kept a code alive in their mouths and hands when papers didn't want to hear it. On my mother's paycheck and her quiet pride. On the decision to stand at a microphone and speak like I knew who I was. If you felt something in your chest while I told this, If a part of you stood up a little taller in your kitchen or your car, I want to hear from you. Was I right to call him out in the room? Should institutions fire someone for prejudice they try to pass off as rigor, or is there a path where accountability and repair can sit together? And if you've ever been underestimated or watched a gatekeeper mistake arrogance for expertise, tell me that story. Drop your thoughts. Push back if you need to share what I'm missing. Hit subscribe if you want more true power stories. The best revenge isn't to destroy the people who hurt you. It is to build something so solid that they spend the rest of their lives wondering how they failed to see you when you were right there speaking in a language that was never lost, only ignored.